Now let's talk about the numbers. At the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, 2009, we know after a deficit, I'm already over. All right, let me give you a few numbers. After a deficit of $1,400,000,000,000, can you imagine? And now this year they're forecasting another deficit of $1,500,000,000,000. But last year, the national debt at the end of the year was $12 trillion. Now, you would think that's bad. But you know what's worse? We have Enron type accounting in the U.S. government, and we have it in New York State. What does that mean? What killed Enron? Special purpose entities, SPEs. They kept debt off the books. They kept the losses off the books to keep the earnings high, to seduce shareholders for staying in. They made it an accounting Ponzi scheme. We got it in Washington. Guess what they're called in Washington? GSEs, government-sponsored enterprises. Not on the books, not on the budget, but they can float bonds with the full faith and credit of the United States of America. And let me tell you, there's 28 of them. Government benefit, the benefit guarantee corporation, the pension benefit guarantee corporation, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the post office, you name it. We got 28 of them. Even the old S&L crisis organization they set up is there. Now, these organizations have deficits. They're supposed to be self-sufficient. That's why they were put off the books. But they're not. Look what happened with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And in my book I said, I think they're going to be insolvent and we'll have a problem. You know what the people told me 17 years ago? Joe, you're smoking pot. We will never have to come behind those. I said, yeah, but the government is saying if they go under or if they have problems, they are being backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. That's why the interest on those bonds is not that high. Oh, it's never going to happen. It happened. Okay? And we had to come up with the money on the bailout. So what I'm telling you is we have a phony bookkeeping system in Washington. It's not the one that the SEC uses to protect the shareholders. We need to protect the taxpayers as well as the shareholders, and we need to impose the right system that the SEC is imposing. Is that, you like that?
Yeah.
All right, very simple. Now, Social Security and Medicare. Lyndon Baines Johnson fooled us in 1968. He wanted to disguise the cost of the Vietnam War. So what did he do? He saw all these surpluses in Social Security. Medicare wasn't there, it was just starting. And he said, why should I show a big deficit and wake up the people as to what this war is really costing us? Why don't I just offset the surpluses in those trust accounts against the deficits of the rest of the government and show the net amount? It's called the unified budget. This is the biggest Ponzi scheme ever. It's being used today so that when you get the deficit of $1,400,000,000,000, it's already been reduced by the surpluses in Social Security. So you don't know how really bad it is. You talk about booking the books. New York State, we have 600 authorities in New York State. Are you reading about the MTA? $800 billion deficit? Do you know that's not in the budget of New York State? These are the slush funds. I call them slush funds. These are the SPEs like Enron. They're all off the books. And yet, if you lose an election, the governor will appoint you to a $200,000 job at the Battery Park Authority or the MTA, and then you get a big pension, then you put the overtime in the last 3 years to make it bigger, and then if you decide to take the pension, you can go back to work and get another job and maybe another pension, and you're sitting here losing your house and your job. Don't we have to take back Albany and Washington? Yeah. Did I overstay my meeting here?
No,
okay.
Almost perfect.
Okay. Can I just conclude?
Go ahead.
Okay. I don't want to keep you any longer, but you know, this is an opportunity to take back America. It's very important.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to fall asleep. Right? So, when you talk about 12 trillion, and you add 45 trillion for Medicare and Social Security, and you add, God knows, I'm an accountant and I can't figure it out. In fact, when you read my book here, I went through the chronology of all the laws passed in 17 years, and you'll see the bailout laws in here, and I have a paragraph saying, we still don't know what this bailout costs. And if you read the New York Times yesterday, now the Times editorials are saying, and other reporters, you know, we can't figure out what the Fed has spent. And the Fed is lobbying so that you can't audit the Fed.
Right.
Now, we don't want to, mess around with monetary policy, but shouldn't we know what money was put out there, who we lent it to, and should we know which banks? The Fed is saying, we can't tell you which banks got the benefit of these programs because maybe that's going to hurt their competition or their business. Come on! These are regulated entities. These are not mom and pop grocery stores. They take advantage of licenses we give them. Federal licenses to become banks. We want to know who was bailed out and how much. And then we have to track to see what happened. Look at the banks today. You know what they're doing? Many of them, I'm not going to mention names, they're borrowing for practically nothing at the discount window. Okay? They take the money, instead of giving it to small businesses, they invest it in medium-term treasury bills, 3–4%. And look at the profits they're declaring. It's amazing. And what are they doing? Giving bonuses. All right? So there's got to be, listen, I don't want to beat up on the private sector because it's important to have a strong banking system, especially for us. This is New York. New York, throughout the blue-collar jobs, the Port of New York is no longer, it's just a little piece, and I helped save it with Mike Long in Brooklyn. The bulk of it is in Port Elizabeth. We have now the insurance companies and the brokerage firms, and we have the mortgage firms, we have the banks, you name it. We've got all these paper industries. And God forbid they go under, you're going to see a budget hole in Albany like you can't believe. And then you'll see a real tax bill. Look at my county, Westchester County. By the way, who's here from Westchester?
We are.
Okay. I'm going to have a petition. I'm working with the Liberal Democrats. I always like to work with smart people on the other side of the aisle. I did it all my life. Barney Frank, you may not like him for some things, but he's smart. I know. Back in '88, wait a minute, I know, I agree. Jerry Nadler. When you are a junior member of the minority party, wait a minute. Barney Frank's a vote. That's the bill that I passed 20 years ago. This year's the 20th anniversary of the Chief Financial Officer and Federal Financial Management Act of 1990. Who signed it? 20 years later, okay? Not easy to do when you're a minority member of a junior member of the minority party. Don't forget, when I was there, the House and Senate were controlled by Democrats. If you don't make some kind of discussion with them, you can't get these passed.
They don't deal with Democrats.
Okay, hello. Now. Okay.
No more deal.
Okay, so now in the back you will have my book. You will have this, and you'll see what we did, and you'll have. I think you've got my bio for it. Okay. And if you're curious, yes, that is my daughter, Kara, who's on the judge on American Idol. All right? And I'm going to tell you now, that young lady signed all my things when she was a little girl, and she's coming in to help her father, and I'm going to make the announcement here. Yes, I am running for the U.S. Senate against Kirsten Gilbert.